Welcome, everyone. It's a good day when I get to watch a Jordan Peterson anything, honestly. And honestly, I've been going down a Mosab Youssef binge for like weeks now, and I love everything he says for the most part, and just him as a person, I think, is the perfect voice for what's going on right now. Uh, I can't play any of the episode. I'm pretty sure. I'm almost positive I'd get copyrighted to hell. Especially this is a very new clip. It dropped like an hour ago. Like I said, second I saw this, I dropped everything. I was gonna play some games. I'm working on playing more of Asmongold's game because I want to cover that next. But once I saw this, I was like, I have to watch this. These are like my two people I look toward for like some sort of personal growth, you know? Mosab, insanely difficult life. And then, of course, Jordan Peterson, super insightful, really positive influence on people. And I think they have a sort of dichotomy here that works insanely well. Where when I saw these two people, it's like you have somebody, I say Jordan Peterson's, they're both very strong in different ways. Jordan Peterson has more of a softer touch. I think that you could say that about almost anyone compared to Mr. Youssef. And he brings like a really hard, realistic touch to it where it's like a bit more gritty and it really shows his background. It makes 100% sense. Uh, but I just want to give my thoughts on this. They talked about a lot of things. They talked about Mosab's childhood, how really dark and sad it was, the things he went through. He's been through a lot, right? It's something that a lot of these protesters and people with these rose tinted glasses will never understand. And they also don't understand something that I think Jordan Peterson talked about a lot, which is sort of, it's like with Carl Jung and everything about the shadow and darkness in people. And realistically, to crush out darkness, you need some fucking darkness in yourself. You can't fight a monster with fucking books and fucking um, cake and cupcakes and, you know, trying to appease it because you feed a monster that grows hungrier. You would think the world would have learned this. He talks a lot about how the West, it makes no sense, the current stance in the West when it comes to the liberals and that sort of thinking. Because we, as people, watch this happen with Hitler. Israel gave up ground when it came to Gaza. Regardless of whether or not you think they should have had it in the first place, doesn't matter. They did give up ground. And what we learned is that once you feed any of these countries demanding your land from a place of entitlement and just greed, they'd never stop consuming. It's never enough. We saw this with Hitler, and you would think we would have learned this lesson, but apparently we haven't as a people. And he speaks really eloquently and well about it. I know it's not his first language, so sometimes there's words he can't find, but when you watch, you can fill them in. You know exactly what he means. And so yeah, they talked about his really dark childhood. About that, I had a hard childhood myself, but it does not even compare. These are the kind of people you need. And the thing about Mosab, I remember I was watching someone else react to him. And I remember they said something about his eyes. They're like, look kind of crazy, like, or something like that. And I remember thinking, like, if I think a lot of you will be able to attest to this. Well, not all, but a lot of us know somebody who has had to kill before. If you've met any military personnel that have been through that. But those eyes are eyes that has seen a lot of fucking death. It's hard to explain, but there's a difference between like the crazy feminist eyes, right? You know what I'm talking about, like the like just frozen like that versus really deep kind of like it's like a dark tint to like the way the person appears when it comes to their eyes, right? And that really is a sign that they've seen a lot of fucking death. And when you hear his backstory, it 100% makes sense. It creates a sort of I don't believe in like souls per se, right? But I do think it creates a break in the psyche, or a change in the psyche, I think is better to say, because this is not a broken man. This is a man who was broken and managed to put the pieces back and make a glass formerly made of fucking a cup formerly made of glass into a cup made of steel. And that shit is beautiful to watch. His story really is emotional. I was about to cry watching this. But his backstory, and he talks about how he feels towards Islam and Muslims and everything. And his perspective really is that there's a core issue with the belief system. And he doesn't have an issue with people who are Muslim, per se. He said he has an issue. I think what he was trying to communicate is that he has an issue with people where they don't have a person. They are simply their ideology. So you would introduce yourself as Muslim, basically, or for Allah, before you introduce yourself by your name, basically, in that sort of way. And to that, taking Islam out of it for any sort of belief, this is insanely dangerous. There's extremism in every group, for the most part. I doubt you'll find extreme like people who who want to destroy the world or anything like that, right? But for any group, there are extremes. And the way he words it is so like, when you hear his backstory, you really have to watch this like 100%. When you hear his backstory, his line of thinking makes absolute sense. All he experienced was torture, pain, suffering from these religious fanatics. And from his experience, that is most of Palestine, if not all of it. And that is because the leadership, right? He talked about how Hamas came to power. He talked about his father, who we all know is a founder of Hamas. And his story really encapsulates why he's trying to warn everybody about the danger and the pain that this group has the capacity to do. He is one of their sons. He is called the son of Hamas. He is one of their own. And considering how he was treated as the son of the leader of Hamas, I want you to understand that this means if any of you, I know it's a lot of this LGBT for Palestine, all this shit. He makes it very fucking clear that shit is not tolerated. These are not your friends. These are not your allies. They're across the planet. Their values are very different from ours. And like he says at the end here, they're not being kept in a basement. These are people with ideologies, opinions, with a government that's been trying to do suicide bombings using its people for plenty of years. This is an enemy entity. He goes into detail about how they're not a state and how, because people try to say all of Palestine, like free Palestine. All of Palestine isn't Gaza. This is a huge misconception, I believe, amongst protesters, like this whole free Palestine. Gaza is its own thing. There are like 4 different factions in Palestine. Palestine comes from the British. I think most people know that by now. A lot of people talked about this when the October 7th thing first happened, and everybody was saying, oh, don't hit back, basically. Even though your country was attacked, don't fight back, which is a horrible, horrible fucking way to think. The U.S. would never think that way. We never let an attack on our soil. We would never let that go. We did a 20-year war over this. We bombed plenty of places, plenty of people. And I don't believe any country has the duty to another nation's citizens more so than that nation's government. And I don't think any country should prioritize another nation's citizens over their own. If a country has to eradicate another country in order for their people to be safe, I believe that is the job of the government. If that is I'm not saying that's the case here, But I'm saying in a hypothetical situation where if that's the case, your government, you would hope in if you live underneath that government that they would protect you and that they would take the steps necessary. Um, Mosab really does. He's a really good voice out there. He's very. I think because of his really dark background, he's not afraid to speak very bluntly and plainly. There's no hidden motives in his speech. There's no overarching political goals he's reaching for. He's not a politician. This is a man who lived through fucking hell, and he genuinely wants the best. Like he says in this, America is his home. The U.S. is his home now, and the last thing he wants to see is the same shit happen over here. And I 100% agree. Before Hamas came into power, he does also talk about how the IDF and had known about this group. I think most of us, even if you're very pro-Palestine, will admit that, I know some of you won't, and that's the problem, but I know a lot of you will admit, at least bare minimum, that Hamas itself, the government, is a terrorist organization, and it's bad for everyone. The world, its own people, it just shouldn't exist. He goes into details about how the IDF had information about that. They wanted to stop them, but the international beings that are now very confused on what they should do did not want them to interfere. Would look really bad because they were democratically elected. But we all know now that was a mistake on everyone's part. It was very obviously an extremist regime. But the thing is, again, this is something where you never really know. The U.S. has made mistakes like with Vietnam. We've made plenty of mistakes as a country when it comes to usurping leaders. It happens. So I understand the fear in doing so, especially when one is democratically elected. But when you see a culture so filled with hatred elect, you're probably going to get that wrath that those people are holding. It's like Germany with Hitler, right? Like the people were so upset and angry about perceived injustices, and that lashed out, and it created Hitler, and we see what happened there. Our goal should be to avoid that. We've learned from history. We have an enemy country. We can either stop this now, nip it in the bud, or we start giving them stuff to appease the beast that will never be quenched. And then we have another world war on our hands, and we see the death toll significantly more than what it is now. If you're talking about wars, these numbers that people are throwing out are genuinely, it's not laughable in the sense like those lives don't matter. But if you're talking about a war, right, and a genocide, these are laughable numbers. All of Palestine isn't being bombed to hell. So these people who want to pretend as a genocide, you have to understand there has to be a group being targeted for being that group and no other reason. And they have to be getting wiped out on a mass scale, and it would have to be targeted directly for civilians. He goes into a lot of IDF policies, a lot of chances they had to kill Hamas leaders that they didn't take because their family was around, and sort of how the IDF planned stuff. And I 100% believe him. The IDF has said plenty of this before. Again, he doesn't live in Israel. He isn't a political leader. He has nothing to really gain from this. He was silent on this matter for a very, very long time because people didn't want to listen. But with events occurring now, I'm glad he's decided to speak. And if you look down on Mosab, which I know a lot of the Muslim community does now, which is very sad, but he's turned his back on that community because that's basically what they did to him in Palestine, right? They beat him. They tortured him. They did horrible things to him, took his education away. So he's used to that. I think the hope is that here in the West, we as people can put the fact that he's a fellow American. He would die for this cause to protect America and other countries from this evil. And he genuinely does want the best. I think we can all sympathize with that at the bare minimum, just if you're human and respect that your country at the end of the day is protecting you. You're not going through what Israel and Palestine is right now. And even when we are at war, you never really see it at our front gates. The only time anything like anywhere close to that, to the current scale, which it isn't, is 9/11. And that is really the only thing we can point to. You don't live in constant fear of being bombed. We're not always being bombed by a bunch of different forces. We can't compare to, like, we can't understand what that's like, right? I just have grown to have a lot of respect for him. I agree with a lot of what he says. Just he's not super religious. I know he switched to Christianity, I believe, but he's not hyper religious. I 100% agree with that. I'm not Christian at all. I'm not religious at all. And he speaks from a very like individualistic standpoint where it's like the person matters. All of your ideology should not be your personality. That's not who you are, regardless of how you may feel, whether you're religious or not. That should not be who you are. You are a person. You have a mind. You should be able to think outside of this group that is telling you how to think, regardless of what that is. It could be political, whether you're conservative or leftist or liberal, whatever the fuck you guys are now. You could be, it could be your race, like black, white, Hispanic, right? It could be your culture. It could be your country, etc., etc. At the end of the day, you should be you, and you should be able to think for yourself. And I think that's a beautiful message. I think Jordan Peterson, he preaches that all of the time. It's all about the individual, and I hope you all recognize that and are able to respect the fact that people have different opinions, and that he has. I've seen a lot of discourse on him, and it's always fucking stupid. The only thing they try to do is try to discredit him and say he's lying about stuff. You ask them for any proof that he's lying about anything, they have zero. If you have no proof he's lying, then don't make the claim. You know, it's pretty simple. Because he's talking about a really dark reality that a lot of us can't comprehend. A lot of people think he's lying or exaggerating. No, this shit happens in other places. This happens all across Africa, for example. There's really dark shit that happens in Africa. Let's not pretend like this is something that is unimaginable for human beings. This happened during World War II. This happened in Germany. This happened everywhere at some point. It's happened on our soil plenty of years ago, where people are really brutal and fucked up. And that is the reality of this world. We cannot be soft, right? As a nation, as individuals, as a community, we cannot be soft on really dangerous people and ideologies that disregard the life of an entire other group simply because they are that group. We cannot. I know we all want to say and pretend like, oh, we care about all kids and lives and shit. He goes into very, very deep detail on why those people you guys are so damned on defending do not give a fuck about any of what y'all talking about. They do not care. If it is not their children, their lives, they do not give a fuck. Iran planned a lot of this shit. They also do not care. Iran just shot missiles, tried to kill Israelis. Other Arab countries joined them, and they do talk a bit about how the Abraham Accords are really our way to peace, and I believe that is so. I hope our country stays allies with, you know, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Israel, etc. And I hope that those countries are able to help each other. Obviously, I want our tax dollars to not have to go towards overseas issues all of the fucking time. If they're able to unite, that will be good for every single one of us. They would require less aid from us, hopefully. And we will help. Hopefully, they're able to help remove Hamas and put some peace in that region. I think Egypt has to step in. I think Saudi Arabia. I think Israel. I think Jordan. I think all of these places around Palestine really have to come in and quell these multiple groups, because it's not just Hamas. Once you get past Hamas, there's like 3 other groups that are insanely radical or fighting each other. This nation of it's not really a nation. That group categorized as Palestine needs to be helped, and you can't help something without ridding the fucking virus. You know what I mean? Like everybody's calling for a ceasefire, this, ceasefire that. Stop killing people. Stop doing this. Stop doing that. You don't start and then stop. That's not how this works. See, the second you stop and this happens again, guess what? There's just going to be a repeating cycle. You either get them out now, any means necessary, or you let it fucking happen again. And I want you guys to consider that if this was the U.S., Asmongold, I watched his video about the debate with like Hassan and Piers Morgan that I think was today, yeah, or yesterday. I watched his video. He 100% got it right. If this was the U.S., and let's say Palestine was right next to us, and they killed 1,000, was it 1,500, 1,200, whatever, 1,000 U.S. citizens, and kidnapped a bunch back across our border. If they were where Mexico is right now, Palestine would not exist, guaranteed. And if it did, it would be a lot further gone than it is now, facing Israel. And I think we all need to realize that. And I don't think that's a wrong response whatsoever, especially when you talk about your people, because it's mounting pressure from us as people who live in the country, all of the citizens, you know. What do you expect the government to do? To go and kill 1,000? Like, everybody says proportional, and they never can explain that. Do you think, okay, you came over, you killed 1,000 of my people. Do you think the right response is to go and just kill 1,000 of them and then pull back and say, well, now we're even? That's how human lives work to you? No. If this is my country, there's no such thing as proportional response. There's no such thing. You kill citizens of a country, you should expect that your country may not exist. That is the fear that people need to have if they can't act like human beings and not act like sadistic animals like Hamas does. I think this is a very important thing to realize. He talks about how like people pretend like this Hamas is super separate from their people. He talks about a lot of these people follow Hamas. They voted for them, and there's been no usurpation of their power. And we know if people of Palestine disagree with their leaders, they do rebel. That's how Hamas came to be. They overthrew another government within that region. So this whole idea that they're completely separate, we are extensions of our government. It's like trying to say, well, the U.S. people are not responsible for what their government does whatsoever. Really? We vote. At bare minimum, we vote. We support different things. Granted, the country's split on a lot of things, but there's still a large population of the country that voted for said thing. So this idea that people are completely detached from their governments is bullshit. I don't subscribe to that. Obviously, your government is going to be a reflection of the people, especially if you're voted democratically. That's just how this fucking works. The Palestinian people, from what he said, were very angry with Israel. They still are. A lot of them do want what Hamas wants. And I think the sooner we realize that, the sooner we can move forward to sort of heal that viewpoint. But we have to get rid of the fucking virus. Like you can't start treating. You're trying to treat it while the virus is still in there. It's just going to keep fucking spreading, keep infecting all of the people there. But he makes really good points throughout this. Jordan Peterson mostly is giving the floor to Mosab, which is why I'm not talking too much about what he had to say. He talks about how like the IDF pushed him to go to school and everything before they even started working with him. I know it's a big notion. I've seen people say, oh, he sold his people out for money. They refused to pay for anything for him outside of schooling. And he didn't do work for them for like 5 years, ever since from when they had contacted him. And he was stopping stuff like fucking bombings. And he's says that they had all of this information. He would just fill in pieces for the most part that they asked him for. And he would give up Hamas personnel when they were, you know, high profile and needed to be caught. And obviously, if you disagree with that, if you see that as being a traitor, yes, he's a traitor to Hamas. This is not a bad thing. Like, if you were one of the people that agreed already that Hamas is bad, this should not be. There's no traitor to your people for this. Clearly, his people need to be saved from Hamas. It's not like he told the IDF, yes, this is the school where all the children are going to be blown up or some crazy shit. No, it was giving up Hamas leaders and stopping suicide bombings. I don't know how you can see any of that as bad, but, you know, you guys do you. I think all that line of thinking is stupid. I see so much slander on this guy's name from people who are supposed to be his brothers and sisters. This is why I really just don't like religion. All of that brother shit, all of that brotherhood and sisterhood and love everyone and love your fellow man, all that shit go right out the window the second they disagree with you. This is someone that looks like them. This is someone that speaks their language probably better than any of the ones here in the U.S. for sure, raised here. He has read significantly more than, again, anyone in the U.S. That practices the religion. And it's a sort of cultural turn on him from that book that he criticizes. And he has every right to criticize. He grew up, the way it was used was to torture him and hurt him. This is what the ideology was used for. And it's being used now to, as always, it's been used to convince people to blow themselves up. It's been used to convince people to compromise their entire, all of their people for land. Like, this is crazy. This is really like radical thinking, and he has every right to criticize a religion. I don't know why people in the U.S. think that some religions are okay to criticize while others aren't. People shit on Christianity all the time. Again, I'm not religious at all, so obviously I criticize every religion equally as it needs to be or as it needs to be. But media criticize Christianity all the time. When it comes to Islam, it becomes this sort of, oh, you can't say that. Why can't I criticize an ideology? Every ideology is up for criticism. And if you can't defend a part of your ideology, maybe you need to rethink it. But Christians go through this all the fucking time. You can ask any Christian. I guarantee any of you watching that are Christians, you have been challenged on your faith some way or another, or you have seen people making fun of your faith in fucking movies, TV shows. This is very normal. Buddhism gets made fun of all the fucking time. Buddha and everything. I've seen a bunch of stuff about Buddhism where they just kind of get made fun of, right? Buddha's the fat guy, ha ha ha, like that kind of shit, right? We can criticize conservatism. We can criticize belief structures across the board. But when it comes to Islam, for some reason, you are seen as hateful for criticizing an ideology that, like every other religion, every single other religion has this exact same thing, but it has cost lives. Like, that's just the nature of belief, of anything, of any system. Believing in capitalism has cost lives. Believing in your nation has cost lives. Believing in any religion has cost lives in the past. Plenty of people died under the Catholic Church. You look at the Crusades or anything like that. You look at the cleansing that was happening in the Ottoman Empire to Jews, which is why he talks about that a bit here too, which is why they had left that area. And then following World War I, they started to migrate back. And then following World War II, obviously Israel comes to be. So Jews haven't had a great time in that region whatsoever. People talk about genocide this, genocide that. Jews have been running around the entire planet. They've been running around the entire planet, been prosecuted everywhere. They're being prosecuted here in the U.S. for who they are. They were prosecuted in Europe, over in Germany. They were prosecuted in the Middle East, and now they are also being prosecuted there again. So, and this is a very small group of people. It gets mentioned here about how, like, the Arab population is significantly larger, and that influences public discourse. And he is absolutely right. There are like 1.3 billion Arabs, where it's like 200K Jews maximum or something like that. It's a insane difference. I don't remember the exact number for Jewish people, but this is something that needs to be recognized. And all of you who aren't Arab, I want you to listen to both sides. And those of you who are Arab, I want you to listen to the other side and maybe consider, just because these people share your religion, they may not practice it the same as you. They may be a bit more radical than you, and that they may not give a fuck about what you're talking about. All this shit that we let slide here, that's not the same. He's lived in Palestine. His stories, the stories of other people who have lived there, it's a dark place, okay? Being a kid and seeing as much death as he did, it's crazy, right? This isn't a place you want to live. If it was a place you wanted to live, you guys would be there. All of us, we would move there. It would be great, but nobody wants to live there, right? Unless they're trying to conquer land. That seems to be a pattern in the Middle East. So yeah, it's a really good episode. I suggest you guys watch it. I really loved it. To get you thinking about a lot of issues in a more like deep way. And honestly, I think weakness is why a lot of people aren't just built to be leaders. The sort of lack of understanding about how the real world works and how much darkness people have, in that you need some kind of darkness. You need some kind of ability to make really hard decisions like that. And you have to be able to do it knowing, wow, some people may die, but for the greater good and for my people, that's necessary. There's no conflict. There's no war that has happened that could have easily been solved otherwise, for the most part. I guarantee, especially nowadays, if people could talk it out, they would. Frankly, radicals exist. People who oppose your ideals, who oppose your land, who oppose everything exist. You need a really dark air about you at times to deal with really bad people. My opinion on the whole thing, is Israel right? I think Israel has 100% a right, right? There's no such thing as rights, but unless you're the stronger entity, which they are, right? They have absolute right to defend their country by any means necessary, within reason. Again, the death toll does not match up with it's not even the death toll, it's the reasoning does not match up with genocide. They aren't cleansing. If they were cleansing, it would be a lot more deaths. I don't think people really understand what these weapons can do. Like, everybody knows they're getting funding from the U.S. I want you guys to just look up the kind of weapons that they've received or are using. I'm telling you right now, with hundreds of billions of U.S. military equipment, all of Palestine would be gone if that was really their goal, right? Like this, I don't know why people say this shit. It's like they don't. All of this is public information. I'm not saying anything classified or anything. You can look up what these governments have, the kind of weapons. The Iron Dome itself is an insane piece of technology. I don't think you guys realize how much further advanced Israel is versus Gaza. This was a stupid war, even if what they were facing was unjust, right? Which, when you have a group of people actively saying they want to kill all of your people, you're going to have some kind of discrimination going on between both sides. So this is just obviously, but this was a really fucking stupid move on the Palestinian government, specifically Gaza. The people made a horrible move voting for Hamas. And for you to start a war with people who are significantly more powerful than you for some fucking land that you were never born on, it's fucking crazy. Like, this is actually an insane way of thinking, right? Because Israel's been a thing for 76 years now, around there. Hamas leadership, I'm almost positive, is not. Most of them are not that. They don't remember being on that land if they were even born there. And for 90% of the youth, I think people were trying to say like 50% of the population are kids or whatever. I don't know how true that is. That sounds insanely impossible. But maybe it's like some weird societal thing. Maybe because so many of the people, I don't know. I don't know why that would be the case actually. You're saying over half of your population, 100% never even was born on that land, yet they're dying for it, and it's letting you're never getting back. Israel's not packing up their bags and just where the fuck are they going? Like that's not how this works. You guys want us to open our borders for everyone, but when it comes to a piece of land in a place you've never been, you want them to give it up so that terrorists can have more space to start plotting how they're going to take down the U.S. Really? You guys are all about immigration, but when it's anywhere else, it's like, ew, no. But you guys want to come here, force that upon all of the American people, force us to pay more in taxes, force us to lose homes, shit like that. I mean, just look at the situation in New York. I don't even have to speak. The situation in New York is fucking crazy, and now you just got a bunch of homeless fucking immigrants who can't get a job because they're illegal immigrants and got no way to get safety or a roof over their heads without stealing and shit like that. And it's like you guys are putting these people in horrible position. But when it comes to another place and they have a nation established, it's also wrong for people to be on land. I also pose this question to everyone in the U.S. protesting this. If you genuinely believe Israel shouldn't exist and that because other people's ancestors also lived on that land, we know Jews also lived on this land at a point in history before this, so that argument kind of falls apart. But if you genuinely believe because it wasn't their land until kind of recent history, I do pose a question for all of you who are immigrants. When are you going to leave our country and go back home so that the Native Americans can come back and take their land back? I pose this question because all of you live on fucking stolen land. I don't know if you guys have been to the U.S., any U.S. Museums, but there were people here before it became the United States of America. So I ask, when will you practice what you preach and leave this country because that is how you feel? The truth is, none of you genuinely feel this way. You just hate the Jewish people, and you are siding with Arabs because they share your religion, despite the fact your way of life is completely different. You don't know anything about these people. You ignore all of the atrocities they've committed. You make assumptions based on their race and religion, and that's the end of the story for you. You don't look at people for who they are. So I ask you this: when are you giving back the Native American land that you are living on, that your ancestors were for a fact not fucking born on? And if you won't be giving back your land, shut the fuck up about telling other people to, because you have no ground to stand on. If you live in the U.S., if you live almost anywhere in the world, your land has been conquered at some point. And if you live anywhere in Europe, you definitely got no fucking ground to stand on either, right? If you live anywhere in America, it's the same exact shit. So when are you giving your lands back to the natives of your homeland? And if you don't have an answer, if you're going to shut the fuck up and not give up your home to a random Native American family, then stop talking about that. Like, it's just so stupid. It's such a dumb way of thinking. There's no right to land, right? If you cannot defend your land, you have zero right to it. That's not how rights work. Rights are imaginary. It's in your fucking head. Who decides that, oh, they have a right to live there versus them? The truth is, the stronger power, who's more innovative, who has the backing of the world's strongest countries, probably deserves the fucking land if they can defend it. I don't understand how people don't understand this. That these laws are in your head. Like these rules, like, they're not real. These are personal rules that don't exist. Okay? So I hate this conversation because it always goes back to Native Americans, especially for the Americans here that are protesting this shit. All of you, a good chunk of you are immigrants. The way I see it is, if you're not Native American or black, because, and I don't mean African, because obviously you're an immigrant. If you're an African American, right? If you're black, which I hate African American as a term. I'm not African. I've never been to Africa. I have no connection to Africa. I don't even know any, I don't even know my bloodline from, I'm not African, but if you're not African American or Native American, then get the fuck out the country. Your ancestors chose to be here. We didn't. Native Americans were born here. That's how I see it. And yeah, like it's funny because like all the Arabs here making that argument, like you guys realize you're on land that was taken from people. Like you realize that there's nowhere on this planet you can go that wasn't somebody else's land at some point, and you would not give up your houses that you worked all of your life for to some people because their ancestors lived here. So why the fuck do you impose that same shit onto people across the sea? It's because you don't have to live through it. It's no stress for you. You actually have zero to gain or lose from it. You're literally just talking out of your ass. It's always been a stupid argument. I don't think I owe Native Americans anything for this being their ancestors' land. And I don't think anybody should ever feel that way. I don't think natives who come and move into a city deserve to give that shit to like a white family that lived there before they did. When you buy a new house, do you think the former tenants could come back and be like, oh, well, or the former owner could come, their grandkid could come and be like, well, my dad owned this before, so it's mine. That's not how the world works. That's not how laws work, and that's not how rules work. That was how laws worked. Israel never would have existed to begin with. That's not how laws work. I'm sorry, guys. Disagree all you want. That's the fucking facts. And again, I'm not taking any of your disagreements serious unless you shut the fuck up, get up, leave. If you guys did that, all of you protesting now, if you guys did that and had been moved back to Palestine and other places in the Middle East, or those of you that really support this and want to go like the LGBT standard with Palestine, fucking put your money where your mouth is, bro. Where the fuck is your money? Put your money on the fucking table. Go to Palestine. You can wait until all of this is over. Go there, help build their economy, see how accepting they are of you as your people, and let's see what happens. You guys don't really care about these places. That's the truth, though. I think it really is just like a lot of it is Jewish hate, and then like this whole underdog mentality that because the side is losing, they're the victims. That's not how this works. If a smaller guy punches a bigger guy in the fucking face and then he gets his ass beat, that ass beating it was a long time coming, right? Like the ass beat is coming. Nobody's gonna be like, oh, you poor small guy. Nah, you threw the first punch. What the fuck you thought was gonna happen? You gonna just hit me? You think you get to beat somebody up and then they don't respond? Like this whole thing falls apart. But anyway, it was a really good conversation. Please check it out. Let me know what you guys think, and bye.